Cowboy Jim, Northern Alberta, um, hopefully soon to be the independent nation within Canada called Alberta. Possibly it may be called Buffalo. It depends, I suppose, and if Saskatchewan chooses to come along with Alberta. I have listened to some learned people, Jeffrey Rath from APP, um, and a whole lot of others who are very much on the cutting edge of the common sense, financial common sense, political common sense, to become independent from Canada. And the rationale is very simple. Uh, Albertans have been abused for too long. And in actual fact, it's almost goes right back to the beginning of Federation, Confederation. And the problem with the average child who is abused is that the abuser convinces the child that their state, is the best that they can hope for. And further, an abuser will convince a child who they are abusing that they deserve what is happening and that there is no hope beyond that. Um, I had a dear friend, and he told me that when he was like four, um, his stepdad took he and his sister um, down into the basement while the mom was away and took a can of rat poison and explained in no uncertain detail that he, the stepdad, would force them to eat the rat poison if they so much as breathed a word to their mother. Well, that's called abuse, and it is unconscionable. But Alberta, Western Canada, has also been abused by the federal government. I'll leave all the in-depth details to Jeffrey Rath, Alberta Party, and all that. I'll just speak to you like I am, perhaps not the best informed, but I have made a study of abusers, and I've also studied the resultant um, person who was abused. And after a while, um, the abuser convinces the abused child that that's the best they can hope for. And that is exactly what the federal government has been doing to Alberta and the Western provinces for quite a long time. But people are led as sheep to the slaughter the same way as COVID was portrayed to Canadians and people literally all around the world. And they were told that it was life-threatening. Okay. And they were told, you must take the vaccine. And it has since been proven that COVID was not as terrible as it was portrayed, and the vaccines were never even tested. But people were compelled to be vaccinated. And the Freedom Convoy stood up to that evil and paid a very heavy price. That is what we are dealing with in the West. Um, we send 66 to 70 billion to Ottawa, and they in turn give us back 33 billion with which to run our province. And people know the facts. Um, Albertans all over the place know. They have heard it explained intelligently and a whole lot deeper than I do, but they still are in favor of staying in Canada. And I suppose it's the fear of the unknown. But the joy that I've found in my life is to stand up to against fear and trust in a power that is higher than myself, that being God, the God of the Bible. Who who else do you know shot a mountain lion that was running right at my cousin and I with an arrow at 18 feet? Not many. I did. Because my trust in God runs so deeply that I know He will intervene on my behalf. I have a friend in Perth, Australia, wonderful character, and he sent me some contacts on YouTube that I could see and understand what is happening in Australia. And what is happening in Australia is simply the government has taken full ownership of all land in Australia. And the people who have houses on the land and so on, still making mortgage payments, instead of owning the land, they actually are leasing it from the government now. Australia has also restricted and eliminated all guns in Australia. People don't understand. The reason a government does that is the government is afraid that people will resist what they say is right for other people. I put forth an idea, a question. Um, what government is elected by the people who represent the people and they forget who they are and forget that they are elected to represent the people? We, the people. We in Alberta, in Western Canada. We are Canada's economic machine that provides Canada with the provision, the money to survive. And in Alberta, we do not need the federal government in Ottawa at all. Alberta will prosper on its own, and Canada will fail simply. But we have been abused by the federal government. Income tax, GST. I, I, I mean, you carbon tax. Down in the States, um, Donald Trump is eliminating the requirement for DEF in diesel engines because it doesn't make any difference anyways. And the US government is passing laws stating you don't have to have DEF on your diesels at all. Canada has wanted to, for a very, very long time, to control the Canadian sheep. That's us. I slept in my old Dodge down at the Coots, Montana border. Um, Freedom Convoy. What an honor. What a privilege. It was perfect. My days off, I work 7 days and then I have seven off. And I I just loved it down there because they were standing for something that counted for something. They did not want to be vaccinated. And yet the government, in its wisdom as an abuser, and they are abusers, um, insisted. Hey, the Canadian federal government weaponized the RCMP, and the RCMP obediently went along. And now um, the federal government is trying to restrict our guns, and they've done a wonderful job of trying to eliminate any chance that the West will oppose with violence the federal government's implementing controls that are far, far expansive, more than you might realize. And we in the West, we don't want violence. We, for the most part, we want to honor God, but we do not want to be part of Canada any longer because Canada has shown its absolute disdain for the West by controlling everything that we do and by milking Alberta of all the money that Ottawa does. And Ottawa, I'm not kidding. I'm saying Ottawa is like a child abuser. Ottawa says to the West, this is the best that you're going to get. And it's probably better than what you deserve. And we in the West want to vote to leave. Yes, we could probably very easily become a 51st state. We don't want that. Albertans want ties to the US, pipeline, so on and so on. But we wish to be independent. We're smart enough to be independent, and we have the heart to be independent. And the God of the Bible has provided us with wealth, natural resources. Amazing. And the liberal government tried to stir up the First Nations people and try to do all that sort of crap. That's what an abuser does. So, a challenge for you. My prayer for you is that you will get to know the issues and that you will prayerfully consider the options. Staying in the federal government, I mean, think of the poor farmers getting ready to harvest their canola, and and there's no market anymore because China and the Canadian federal government want to make people run electric vehicles. China because they make them. Canada because, well, they're just stupid. And an electric car at minus 40 or minus 50, it won't work out here. It won't work. But that abuser in Ottawa, uh, um, some people call him Carnage rather than Carney, because that's what he's leaving behind, carnage, devastation. And one thing that's very important, in Australia, they have two levels of policing. One, the regular police. Two, the peace police. And the peace police um, are there to chase down any dissenter, any person who speaks against the government. That's called control. That's called abuse. And that's what we have in Canada. We're ready for a change. It's time for a change. But if you are um, one of those sheep who the abuser has convinced that you have the best that you deserve now, well, I'll pray for you because God has a better plan, and it is that He wishes to set us free. That's what we're talking about, freedom. God bless you. I hope you're prayerfully looking at all the information, not just the PR from the Federalist abusers, but the average renter, the average person such as myself who works in Fort Mac and still runs equipment. I mean, I I I'm 76 come October, and there's not a hope that I could ever retire on the $900 a month that comes from the federal government in my pension. It's not. It's impossible. So God bless. Please, would you consider looking at all the data and making up your mind? It's your mind. No one can tell you how to think, but we all need to think. Guarantee you. God bless. You all take care. Thank you.